Alright, what's up YouTube, I'm 40. We're doing my second place tournament deck profile for ARG Indianapolis. 67 people in attendance. I did go 6-1 in Swiss. Keep in mind that I was the undefeated. I should have been in first place after standings. I'm actually kind of pissed about that. I scooped to my last round opponent so he could make top 8, figuring I would have secured my spot. But my round 6 opponent actually finished first in Swiss. So relatively annoying about that, but top 8 did split 125 credit across the platform. Really nice. We resolved Drachma 8 times in one tournament. No, I didn't lose when I went into Drachma. One questionable time I went into Drachma. Opponent had 9 cards in hand. It was actually against Netabai, Aquaforce. He would have been able to ultimate strike me back on Tidal Assault, but thankfully, he only had 1 counterblast, so I didn't get blown the fuck out, thankfully. It could have been really bad. So, yeah. So, the life and times of a Kagero player. I know a lot of you guys, you have a lot of choice words about Kagero, but the deck does what the deck needs to do. The deck is a controlling powerhouse, and that's why I went with it for this tournament. Because going into it, control was honestly, I think, the best scenario for the tournament, considering Great Nature and, what was it, Aquaforce were my 2 most feared matchups, outside of other players being experienced in the mirror. I didn't have to deal with those players, and thankfully Kevin Cho went X2, so I didn't have to worry about playing against him in the early rounds. But, what was it, going into round 6, it was 2 Aquaforce players, me, and a Great Nature player undefeated. Yeah, it would have been Netabai. I played round 5. Round 6 was Great Nature. Great Nature, not exactly sure what he was expecting out of the matchup. He kind of early game rushed me, and I just kind of blew up his field. And then on like my stride turns, I went to stride, he was on like 5 cards. And you know, Kagero just loves eating through that shit. So, very interesting times. But also to those of you that are like, you can play Kagero without a ZR. No. I was talking to the other guy, my last round opponent that I gave the win to. We were talking about decks, and he was like, yeah, I didn't have Drachma before the tournament. He was like, I picked it up, and it closed out games. He Drachma'd 8 times as well in that entire tournament. And having a card that can close out games like this, it's very important. So, let's dig into this, shall we? 4 copies of the Destiny. This card is insanely nuts. That's about all I can really say about this. I believe that this is probably the most insane Overlord I've seen. And then we're playing 3 copies of the X and 2 copies of the End. Now, a lot of you guys like more copies of the End for the early game push. The last round player, me and him were talking, he was playing 4 copies of this and no cross. His logic in the early game push, it's better, but in the case that I'm needing to be on this, I'd rather be on the cross so I can Legion, and at least if I'm playing down a turn, I get a little bit more value out of deck thinning, so I at least have the stride fodder for the next turn. It's the way I'm viewing it. Outside of that, it's pretty self-explanatory. At least if I Drachma my opponent and I need to like kill them still, like, this is a sub play, and it happens. There was one game where I Drachma my opponent so badly that he had to pass his turn, and I rode into the X Legion, grabbed this, and killed him with this. So, there's really weird plays that you get the chance to do, so there's that. Grade 2s. 4 copies of Glow. This card's actually pretty good. A little bit better than I thought it was going to be. 4 copies of our boy Nahum. Pretty standard, honestly. The lineup doesn't really tend to change all that much. And then 3 copies of this. Once again, last round opponent and I were talking. He was playing 4 copies of this. He's also only playing 8 grade 3s. I don't find myself needing this all that much. In the control matchup, I mean, it seems a little bit better, but in the end, like, doesn't even matter, I guess. I understand the logic behind the extra grade 2, but having that extra Overlord in deck for the 1 extra chance to grab it on the turn that we're trying to push just the one extra greater named card. I'm putting a little bit more value in. So I feel that that's safe to say. You're on your tempo when you need to be, plus with the guy that recycles them back into the deck, it's just a little bit greater value. 4 copies of the guy that I just said cycles into the deck. And 1 copy of, oh man, where's my strike fodder? 1 copy of this. So the only time that these are bad is literally the Link Joker matchup. I mean, like, we really don't even care about that. Typically, if you need the stride fodder, you can grab it off of Conroe. I found myself grabbing this and secondary Conroe, depending on the situation. But having the guaranteed stride fodder was pretty good. 1 is fine. I don't think you need any more than that, honestly. I get why people play 2, but it didn't really come up all that much, especially in this tournament. Protect Orbs. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Countercharging is a hell of a drug. It's really good value. 4 Conroe. This wraps up my lineup, yes. So, 4 copies of Conroe. This card's insane. Don't countercharge all that much. Just mainly call it in the front row, ram my opponent in the face, and fix my hand. It's pretty good value. Now, triggers are where I'm going to have a lot of complaints. Obviously, starters Conroe. Alright, triggers. 4 heal triggers. And 5 draw triggers. We're not playing stand triggers. A few people, once again, my last round opponent, I was playing 2 of these, 3 of these. 4 of this seemed really good. I played against Tachi at some round in the tournament. I think it was round 3. Gatling Claw, target the starter. That way my Purge can clean up the other problems on the board. Really happy to have these. I'm indifferent about. It didn't come up that I needed to put him in the Soul for power, because usually he was in the damage zone. And then my crit triggers. So I went into this tournament with the mentality of Kagero has a lot of crit triggers. And the fact that you can play the game and psych out your opponent's going to try to keep track of your triggers in the form of just mental checks. Now, I played 7 different critical triggers. Now, my reasoning for this, and this actually came into play against my Great Nature player, actually had OCD. And I'm not going to say that mind games are something that you can convey. But if I'm in a tournament and I can control a variable that will put my opponent on tilt, it is going to be this variable. Playing against somebody that is trying to maintain and keep numbers, keep track of the cards in my deck, using the knowledge that they have. And if you see different triggers like this, you're not going to know my ratios. It is within the confines of the game, and it allows you to control a variable against your opponent. Now, it's very interesting when you look at it that way, but it did the job that I needed it to do. It kept my opponents on tilt because they couldn't figure out what my trigger ratios were. Just knowing that there were 7 crits when I drive check this, this, and this at some stage in the game, and then we're going into game 2 and they see this and this, and they're just like, what the fuck's going on here? It's a variable that you can control, and it was actually a very good call on my part. Definitely something I do not regret doing. So, very, very good call on my part. I had 2 people comment after the game and ask, what are your ratios? I'm like, yeah, I'm just playing 7 different crits. So, fucking, when you type up your deck list, you don't have to worry about writing them out. G-Zone, Drachma. This is a win con. So much. I also use Drachma as a little bit more of a defense play. If I Drachma on my opponent and don't win, I usually put myself into a position to win on the next turn. And that's what you're using this for, to paralyze your opponent. 1 copy of this. Last time I did a deck profile, I was talking about wanting to play this because I felt I needed it. Went into the entire tournament, didn't make this fucker once after I knew I needed it. So annoying. 3 copies of this guy. Oh my god, so much value. Resolving double Pentadrive. It was so good. That's another reason why I like the stand triggers over or like the draws over the stand triggers. If you're getting early game aggroed, your stand triggers don't do anything to you. If you get attacked early game and you hit a defense draw trigger, it nets you an additional +1 that you can use to further guard. Came in handy against Netabai when he was playing Aqua Force Rush. I hit a draw trigger, netting me an additional 5k shield, which actually allowed me to stand out for the next turn. So, very happy about that. 2 copies of Ziegenberg. I wanted to play 3. 2 was fine. If you need to go into the 2 of this, you probably already should have won. 2 copies of the Ace, aka Flip Fodder for the other good one. Sabreeze. I Sabreezed 4 times. Every time I Sabreezed, it put me in the most amazing position ever. Great Nature Guy allowed me to Sabreeze him twice. His logic was, I would rather you Sabreeze me than any of your other cards, which is fine. I mean, you're on an 11k compass line anyway. But you give me 3 Counterblast, 2 to kill something, or 2 to do this, then 1 to break straight, search for another Overlord. Like, interesting. Interesting choices. And then the Kagero mirror I played was around 2. I went in Sabreeze, and she was like, I don't know how you have room for that. Very easily. I mean, you only go into like 7 cards in your G-Zone. Let's see here. 3 copies of Denial Griffin. I had a whole discussion on this. I wanted to go down to 2. Went down to 2. 1 game came up, I needed 3. We went back to 3. I don't want to be without my 6-piece. Root Flare. I kind of want to go with the second one of this. It's really good. This is for Blaster, mainly, because you can go snipe out the annoyances in the back row. And this guy was actually MVP. Great Nature players like to not give me a board to blow up every blue moon in really weird matchups. Don't ask. I didn't understand it either, but gaining 50,000 shield is pretty good, I heard. So, good value in this. So, anyway, that's my Kagero matchup. A little breakdown for you guys. Definitely a lot of interesting stuff went down this weekend. Very, very, very good tournament report in general. I'm absolutely very satisfied with the way that this deck performs. If you guys have any comments, please leave them down below. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Remember the playtesting videos, people like, Rob, you have no idea what you're doing, Kagero. Different mentalities for different situations, I feel. You can argue that this deck is extremely helmet. I would disagree because every other Kagero person I talked to had different mentalities than I did. I didn't agree with any of them. So, interesting thoughts. So, alright guys, I'm out. Deuces. That's not all, card fighters. Please subscribe for more Cardfight Vanguard content. Please remember to check out MCole40 for Yu-Gi-Oh videos. And please check out MColeGames.com, my store, along with No Limit Gaming, NLGTCG.com for all of your guys' trading card game needs as well. Until next time, guys, remember to hit that subscribe button. Later.